First time in decades, as Sonia Sotomayor put it in her blistering dissent, we have the Supreme Court of the United States erecting and allowing new discrimination on the basis of identity. And cue the reaction around the country. Well, some people oppose the decision. Some businesses are going on as usual, meaning they're not going to change what they do. But others are seeing this as a license to do new legal discrimination. Take this hair salon in Michigan, which has announced they will refuse service to certain members of the LGBT community, posting online, this was days after the ruling, and saying they have the right to do it. And as a legal matter, depending on how they do it, well, this is exactly what the Supreme Court wrought. This is a very important story. It's one we've covered in more than one way. And tonight we turn to Chasten TV, the author of I've Got Something to Tell You, a memoir about growing up and discovering his own identity and his own life and how he wanted to live it in a place called Traverse City, Michigan. And that is the same town now under scrutiny over this particular choice by this particular business. And as many people know, and we mentioned this in the spirit of disclosure as covering the news, he's also married to Transportation Secretary Pete Buttigieg. Welcome to The Beat.
Hey, good to see you. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. You know this. You're right in it, geographically and otherwise. And I put the first question to you. We deliberately showed those signs that came down. Do you feel like this is, in a way, whatever word you use, straights only or whatever only signs being put back up? Is that okay?
Yeah, I think you touched on two really great points. You're free to have an opinion in this country, but you're not free to discriminate. You are less free in this country if you have to start looking up in a directory where you will receive service and where you won't. And the fact that this is happening right here in my backyard, I want to be very clear. I don't think this is representative of people in Traverse City, Michigan. We moved our family back here to Traverse City. I think it's a very inclusive community, and Traverse City wants to be on the right side of history. This is a town I ran away from when I was younger, convinced that I would never fit in, that I would never know community or family or love here. And now I love being here. I love seeing this community and progress, work towards that equality for everyone. And the outpouring of support for the LGBTQ community just in the last 24 hours after that Facebook post has been overwhelmingly supportive.
Yeah, I appreciate the point you're raising, and we try to be careful with it in the introduction, but you're reminding everyone the fact that one person, one place is doing this, right, doesn't tell us everything. And then our public response, we talk about free speech in this case, and I'm a big proponent of free speech. That's different than business discrimination. But people can go out on the street or in whatever forum and speak about this. Right now, a lot of the free speech, quite frankly, has been against the discrimination. I mentioned why it traffics in an ugly history. I also would like to get your response, having thought through so many of these issues, to the defense of the ruling that, for example, Justice Gorsuch makes. He puts it in the language of what he calls, quote, tolerance. And he says, tolerance, not coercion, is the answer. First Amendment envisions U.S. as a rich and complex place where all persons are free to think and speak as they wish, not as the government demands. Chasten, a careful reader of this text, and this is what you do in law school, might say, seems like he wants to get in on your side of it. He's talking about it like he's so tolerant, and yet there seems to be a problem with that on the discrimination front. What is your response?
Tolerance is a tricky word because what you're saying there is there might still be room for discrimination. I will tolerate your existence. I will tolerate the idea that some people might deny you service. This is just a question of freedom. Are you free to be LGBTQ in this country? Is it okay to receive services? Will you be turned away simply for how God made you? I believe that this is how God made me. There was no choice along the way. So it's very perplexing to see people like this salon owner put out statements that compare you to animals, wondering why this is the thing that you're honing in on as a business owner. And I think in that statement, yes, you are totally, absolutely allowed to have an opinion. And that is one of the great things about America is that you can speak freely and have an opinion. But again, an opinion is very different than discrimination.
Yeah, and that goes to the last thing I want to ask you about. I mean, we even mentioned your husband deals as transportation secretary. That's not just about planes, trains, and automobiles. It's about business. It's the regulation of business. And we are in a very capitalist society. I mean, that's just the current reality. Mm-hmm. And so it would seem important that we understand that if all of our big activities are channeled through business, I don't care what, like I mentioned, go get on a plane, go to a concert, go to a bookstore, Most of this is through business, and that's why the business community and stores and storefronts were ultimately where part of the civil rights battle of the 60s was litigated, and many people say won positively because those signs came down. What do you see as the important part here? Because it would seem that some opponents of this movement are trying to use certain businesses to create or erect a new second-class citizen. You can't get in. You can't get your hair done here. You can't go to that concert, maybe, depending on whose business is running it.
Yeah, I think there's a question sort of back in front of the GOP right now. Are LGBTQ Americans full and equal members of society? Are LGBTQ Americans deserving of equality and community and all of the rights and privileges that everybody else in this country experiences? You are right. I think there are people who, just like this salon owner, in the wake of the SCOTUS decision, have decided, I'm going to vocally support this anti-LGBTQ movement. Of course, she was misguided and wrong. The state AG has already spoken out against it. That would be a violation of Michigan state law. But I do think there is this new wave of our friends on the other side of the aisle now deciding, are LGBTQ Americans full and equal members of society? I believe they are. I believe every LGBTQ American is deserving of community and freedom in this country.
Yeah, and look, we wanted to hear from you for that. I think the audience is enriched by that as we navigate all these issues together and also see what the choices are. The Supreme Court opening up a new rift here, and it's one we all have to kind of think through as a society. Chasten Buttigieg, thank you so much.
Hey, thanks for having me. Take care.